Hello, people on it. It is I, Unknown BT, here with another video, but specifically in this case, a little disclaimer. This listing is not 100% accurate to the current uh, meta of Rush Duel, but it does give a general idea about what is the more effective strategy to be playing, though it is not fully one-to-one. All sources of information comes from public Twitter accounts from official tournament stores over in Japan of primarily the top listings for the winners of official tournament stores. Though, of course, I do have a set limit of participants that are required for it. All the current participants that I keep track of has been from July 14th up to uh, July 24th. So it is about 2 weeks after the release of the ban list and on the starting date for the release of the Element Hero Structure Deck. Anyway, guys, I hope y'all will enjoy the video. Hello, everyone. Yes, we return with another meta listing. Yay! It has been way more than a minute since my last tournament meta discussion, actually. I believe it's been a few months, and I must say, I am a little bit disappointed in myself because the recent meta has been honestly pretty amazing. If you are unaware, which in most cases, if you're watching me, you are definitely now unaware, uh, Secret Investigator has actually been taking over the Rush metagame, having a number of extenders. You got the 7-ship package, along with Snake Princess. It was a pretty devastating deck, almost I would probably say tier 1 to a grand extent. The Galaxy Cup, the official quote-unquote larger scale of tournament for Rush Duels, almost half the participants were on Secret Investigator. It was pretty devastating. I mean, there were still quite a variety, but it was horrifying. The deck definitely needed the hits that it did on the ban list. That is why I did wait a little bit longer to post this video, because I 100% knew that Secret Investigator was going to fall off. And also, we waited a little bit longer to see how Elemental Hero would be doing. Granted, that bias surely did some number on this. Yay! Lo and behold, of course, two structure decks have the most representation for toppings. Crazy! Yeah, I'm gonna say this every single time. Blue Eyes and Elemental Hero aren't like the meta deck. It's like, of course, it's a little bit after the release of these structure decks. The recent structure decks, in terms of like Blue Eyes and Elemental Hero, are pretty good starters. They have a lot of good staples in them. Blue Eyes in general is just a solid deck you can play just from the box. Elemental Hero structure has a pretty decent win condition, a pretty okay start for low levels, not high levels, but it also has a lot of competitive staples in it, which have made it a little bit easier for people to come into the game. So, of course, it's like release weekend, release week, you are going to see a bit of it, but yeah, because of the ease of getting the structure decks in comparison to the cards or singles, it makes a little bit of sense. But lo and behold, I am still surprised by this because recently in the OCG they've had a shortage on Elemental Hero structure decks. Lo and behold, the fanboys, fangirls of GX, plus the meta players who want all the staples, have been ordering a lot of these. Anyways, let's get into explaining some of the listings. So of the last 2 weeks I have listed, I have 42 topping list. Yay! And I gotta say, it's quite the variety. It is quite good. So of course, at the top of it, we do have Elemental Hero at 8 representations. No surprise, as I said before, it is a new structure deck. You are going to see this quite a bit. And they are a little bit smaller tournament stores in some cases, but it is arguably not horrible. Elemental Hero is currently offering a few interesting things. A Miracle Fusion of its own, along with actually not horrible fusion monsters. You got a field spell that makes pretty much a 16 beater into a 26 beater. You can make a fusion into a 3100 beater with burn, and you have a guy that pops back row. So you can basically throw those into any single warrior package you want. You can use any high level warrior that you feel like, and then you can get just like a mini engine of fusion materials to, just remove some back row. Not only that, also, once again, the staples. The staples are the reason why this set is, well, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons for competitive players of this set is pretty good. or this structure. After that, we have 7 copies of Blue Eyes. Of course, Blue Eyes is never gonna end. Until like something hits Blue Eyes, it's probably still gonna be very prominent until like power creep hits it. But even then, I don't believe that Blue Eyes is still that crazy. It is, once again, it is a good structure deck. It had a new support card. Well, I say quote unquote new, it was a while ago. A new fusion monster, which definitely helped the deck out, needing only 2 fusion materials in comparison to the 3 materials for a big vanilla. This one's actual removal. Nothing realistically changed with the deck. It is the same as it always is, but you know, a little bit more fusion focused, but that's all I can realistically say. It's just a fun deck. After that, we do have our representations all marking up at 3. 3 representations for Harpy. Same with the other strategies, Harpy hasn't realistically changed much. The vast amount of removal that Harpy has continues to be a pretty good control deck. Though I believe that Harpy decks are still not too fusion focused, fusion, maximum focused, but you know, they're still doing a pretty good job. Their trap card that shuffles a card, replaces the card back into the deck, still a menace. But of course, if you're fighting against decks with more back row removal and you're on Harpy, so you're not always going to be on the Ryozai stuff, it's still pretty decent if you're looking for a rogue strategy. After that, we do have 3 representations of Secret Investigator. These brave souls, you're playing 2 one-ofs and you're still topping with them. I believe like one of these tops was actually a 12-person event and they did about 5 rounds. Like, good for you. Going undefeated 5 rounds, like, that's pretty good. Especially considering the fact that how many hits the deck has and you lost your 2 main extenders. Like, the main reason this deck was good, besides the, you know, the attributes, the levels and all that, and the typing, your extenders were really good. So if you don't know, the recent ban list, Miscast and Mismatch, I believe the names were both limited. Basically, while you control monsters, they're both level 3 light reptiles. While you control no monsters, send top 3 cards of your deck to the grave, then add a light reptile from grave to hand if you milled one. And then the Mismatch, I believe, when it's a normal special summoned, excavate 3, add a reptile from the excavated cards to hand. So, of course, putting those 2 cards to 1 definitely did hurt the deck. That doesn't mean that the rest of the tools are gone. That just means like the consistency is down a bit. The deck is still horrifying. Like, you still got those really good cards, and Konami is still printing a lot more new options for the deck. We got a new Ship of 7 treasure support, specifically through a new monster, which I do see people playing it quite a bit. You are getting a few more Secret Investigators here and there, but yeah, they weren't too crazy. Yeah, if we get any more reptile support in the future, something to possibly replace them or fill in the empty gaps, I can probably see it coming right back. Next to that, we have Light Galaxy. It's now this is a deck I'm a little bit more or less familiar with, but I do somewhat understand the strategies. Recently, Galaxy has been getting a lot more support, and specifically Light Galaxy has been becoming quite good, because if you mix the idea of parallel order, but then slap in good win conditions, it's quite horrifying. It's a huge toolbox of a bunch of very powerful fusion monsters, a lot of generic fusions as well. You have a named material, plus you have +1 or more Galaxy, Light Galaxy, and all that. It's honestly not horrible. Like, in terms of generic fusion materials, Light Galaxy still stands on top of that. Ignore the fact that Elemental Hero is currently taking the top standing. But yeah, you know, good for Light Galaxy. I don't know how well later down the line Dark Galaxy is going to do, but you know, I hope Dark Matter does, you know, put up a good fight. Granted, Dark and Light Galaxy is a legitimate strategy to some grand extent. It's not really used too often. After that, we have 3 representations from Executie. Yay, Lumiere! Loomis, I believe her name was, is now unlimited. That was the last card on the forbidden list for Executie. Granted, she was at 2. Executie is now at full power, and it's exactly as it was. I don't believe many of the main tools that you're playing are really different. Like, you might be playing Shady or Secret Shady here and there, maybe a Invitation. It's still the same control deck, right? And against like much higher levels like maximums, might have a little bit of issue against decks with very low level focused monsters, like probably something like Harpy. It might have a little bit of issues here and there, but it's still good. And not only that, we are getting a new Executive fusion down the line. It's a contact fusion between Lumiere and Luminous, where you basically contact them from field and shuffle them into the deck, and then it has the ability to shuffle a monster your opponent controls into the deck. Ooh, yes, adding in that removal is definitely going to be helping out the deck quite a bit, and the fact that you don't have to play fusion, pretty good. But I don't think that's going to be nearly enough to probably put it back to the close to tier 0 status that it once was. But it is a really good boost to their power, so that's going to be coming up within the next 2 weeks, I believe. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But most definitely Executee, if they want something, they have to get more new tools, because the Executing monsters themselves aren't that bad, but the interactions, the tools are kind of like drifting a little bit away to like what more people are trying to focus on, especially when people have a lot more interruptions, so you can't do much. But it's still a good deck. Finally on that is Magnet Warrior. Magnet Warrior is actually one of the rarities in this, where it was a high rating deck, I believe, for tier 1, close to tier 1 for a while. Yeah, everything in your deck is a fusion material, everything is an Excentric. You have a good interruption, you have really good fusion monsters, popping cards, having immunity, being big B6. And, you know, surprisingly enough, Rock is pretty consistent. Especially with the Alpha Fusion, getting back your interruptions. It's not bad. So, of course, like, it's still going to be up there, though this is one of the few decks on this listing that are purely being pushed back by power creep, if anything. Because, you know, of course, like, all these other decks have hits, Executee, Secret Investigator, Harpy, they've all had hits, so that's kind of the reason why they're being pushed back a little bit. A Magnet Warrior is still a very threatening deck. It is something that you will more or less see here and there. You're not going to see it too often unless you're playing consistently in competitive formatting. Yeah. Onto that, we are on to our 2 representations for everything. First up on the list, I accidentally did this out of order, but I'm going to skip over this to go straight to it. Cyber Spice. I just wanted to say that. Cyber Spice is one of the reasons why I'm still showing the 2 ofs. 2 Cyber Spice, yay! If you haven't known, Cyber Spice actually got a new deck of cards, which are Fire Cybers. Basically, the entire concept of it is excavating the top card of your opponent's deck, and then if it's a monster of a certain level or something to that degree, you gain benefits. One of them is a Heavy Storm. Is a fusion with Heavy Storm, pretty generic materials. One of the main materials, Hot Pot, can add back a Fire Cybers from grave to hand, which is pretty good. Along with that, you also have all the other generic cyber support they've gone for, the Space Yggdrago and Yggdrago, which, if you haven't read them, pretty good. Supports for primary cybers with 0 defense. That is a very generic sort of stat line now for most cybers, so, you know, it's pretty good. Just cybers in general have been getting a lot of good support. With that, we have two Celebros. Yeah! Celebros is another deck that was actually hit recently on the ban list, with Warlock going to 1. If you don't know, Warlock is basically sent up to 2 monsters you control to the grave, and then you can summon out a level 7 or higher spellcaster from your grave. And if it was Celebros Magician, you can summon Witch from grave. That also includes summoning out the fusions. So this was actually a really disgusting combo. So you summon out Warlock, Warlock tributes itself, summon back Magician, Witch, summon out the larger fusion. The fusion can now reborn Warlock, getting back your materials. You can fusion summon it again, get out the same card, or you can get out the other fusions that you may have. It was a really good card and really just made recovery in the deck unbearable to play against. Like, the deck played for so long, it was such a combo. That is not the reason why I was hit. That's the reason why I hate it, is because it took so long for them to play, because they kept going. But I'm really happy that Warlock is definitely, hopefully, going to stay at 1, because having a double reborn and easily accessible way to get fusions set up is a little bit scary, especially when the fusions themselves can bring them back. A lot of other cards for light spellcaster can bring them back. So this is a good way to like push them down a tiny bit. I'm surprised that Wiz actually survived, considering the fact that we hit 2 Secret Investigators, but at the same time, Celebros hasn't really been doing too much other than, getting a few things here and there. All right. Believe I may have actually missed one of the listings on display. We did have 2 copies of Strange Familiar up there as well, which is basically just a deck of 0 attack spellcasters, which gain a lot of attack. It's an OTK strategy. It's very cheap. In a a best of 1 situation, it makes sense that you can like go in blind and then like OTK easily. Also, as a spellcaster deck, it has a few new support cards, a new level 1 Earth spellcaster with 0 attack and 14 defense, which is something they needed. just something, just body in general. It didn't have to have an effect, but it's okay. But yeah, happy to see that. And then the rest of the decks are basically randoms, where we have Miracle Girls, Wonder Fusion, Prime, and Abyss Slayer, along with Gaia. Yeah. Anyways, that was the main showings of the deck list. Now, before I get into explaining the legend cards, let me just say, this time around, not a lot of people actually showed their full deck list, so this upcoming part I can't fully agree is completely accurate, but I do believe that it gives enough an idea of what to expect to some grand extent. And here's what I meant by it. So if you can see about the 50% mark is a mystery, because that is me not knowing what they showed because they didn't show deck list. They simply just showed told and showed the deck that it was, so like the cover cards for it, not much else. So I'm a little bit iffy on this, but I say it's a good enough representation, right? Or in terms of minuscule wise. So overall, for the 42 deck list, 21 of them have not actually shown their deck list, which is what the question mark's for. But anyways, let's mention everything else. So, of course, for 7 of the representations, they had Blue Eyes White Dragon, as you saw before for the 7 Blue Eyes decks. Of course, that would be the case. Blue Eyes White Dragon being in the top percentage for Legend Monsters isn't something to, like, note on it being good, rather than the fact it's technically almost required for its strategy. I say required because the only other Blue Eyes you're playing or have access to are just 2 guys. So you're kind of required to play Blue Eyes. Plus, it gains a lot of good effects if you're playing Blue Eyes, so no surprise. Next to that is the 2 other legends with 3 representations, both of them, which I would arguably say are possibly the most popular, well, some of the more popular ones right now. We have Mirage Dragon and Rise of the Storm Monarch. So, of course, Legend monsters haven't realistically changed too much in terms of what's being played right now. Mirage Dragon basically locking out trap cards during the battle phase, get around Cylinder, getting out of around Quake and Mirror Force, which was actually introduced in the Elemental Hero Structure deck, which we'll get into later. Just helping you close out games, helping you get through the battle phase, all that. Ryza, Tribute Summon it, stack a card, generally good removal. That's about it. So nothing realistically changed on that end. Jinzo, actually, with 2 representations. This doesn't show it too much, but there has been a lot of Jinzo in prior to my tallying. So, like the time of the ban list, a little bit before the ban list, Jinzo has actually been seeing quite a bit of representation. A lot more powerful trap cards are coming into the format, as I said before, Invitation and Shady, along with other things like Compulse, which you'll kind of see. Jinzo is really nice. Like, it's not the end-all be-all in comparison to like most other legend cards. Like, Ryza is definitely still, in my personal opinion, one of the stronger legends, along with like Mirage Dragon. Jinzo being able to cut out a large sum of these control and combo decks that have control cards is pretty nice. It's kind of surprising that there are still people that are main deck in this. At this point in time, I guess it's not a surprise anymore. Though you may see it from time to time in the side deck, play in the sense of mind that you might see it in the main deck, but at the same time, probably not. So we'll have to keep an eye on our Jinzo boy for a little while longer. Next for that are the other few representations I actually could record. A copy of a Copycat, which I believe is the new promo. Basically, it just copies stats. You know, good for him. I believe that was actually one of the Slowbros decks that were playing it. Go for the Lightning. Your general just board nuke, and then Free the Brave Wanderer, another legend card that came out of the Hero Structure deck. Yay! It did come out with 3 legend cards in it. Pot of Greed reprint, which is definitely needed. But most importantly, you know, Freed and Quaking Mirror Force. Freed it's iffy. It's very restrictive, even in light-focused decks like, what are they called? Celeb Rose or Secret Investigator. You're not realistically playing it too often because you do have better options, but Guildford is still pretty good. After that, we do have people that opted to play, 2 people that opted to play no legend cards at all, or sorry, no legend monsters at all. I'm honestly amazed. Even in their deck list, like, they could just play, they're not locked to anything, so they could have played legend monsters, but, you know, good for them. And then, as I said before, the 21 unknown legend monsters. Yeah, we're probably going to still see this for a while until we get like a huge like reveal for a legend monster that's probably going to be like very good. Hopefully Mobius soon. That probably still won't. Actually, I don't think Mobius is going to do much. Like Mobius is still at this point very inferior. Ryza stacking a card. Grandmarg actually even would probably do better than Ryza or Zaborg because it is working with Magna Wars and able to be recovered. But hopefully we see a little bit more diversity. I would like to see a little bit more Freed, but you know, until then, this is what we got. Whoa. Okay, yeah, no, none of that. Uh, it's legend spells, yeah. I mean, granted, I don't know what to realistically say overall. It's not too surprising when you see it, but at the same time, kind of. No heavy storm or dark hole topping this time around, which is okay, but the issue with that is the 42 representations, 25 of them weren't shown. So we're just kind of hoping that Pot of Greed is going to be up there. Though that also makes sense, as said before, the Elemental Hero Structure deck did have a copy of Pot of Greed in it, which was recently a game promo exclusive for a $80 game, mind you. So Pot of Greed was cost $80 prior to the Structure deck, which cost significantly less. So yeah, 8 representations, Pot of Greed. Now that's more accessible, you are going to be seeing more people play it. A lot of people do think like, oh, I don't need a legend spell and all that. Pot of Greed is basically one of those things where it's like, if you don't need a legend spell specifically, you can just throw Pot of Greed in. It's just overly positive. It's just draw +1, but draw 2. It's just a good card. Now that's more accessible, you are probably going to be seeing this more often IRL. Hopefully it remains that way because I kind of don't want to see Dark Hole. I'm just happy I don't see it as often anymore. After that, we do have 4 representation of Graceful Charity. It is basically, some people would argue the better version of Pot of Greed, but now that Pot of Greed is more affordable, that's up for discussion. 2 copies of Monster Reborn, General Reborn, 1 copy of Recurrent Nightmare, 1 copy of Avarice, and 1 copy of Dark Hole. They're other than Pot of Greed, there isn't realistically much to say about legend spells. And yeah, like none of the more recent legend spell cards have realistically been too amazing, or just we haven't actually gotten any or many at all new legend spells, so it's kind of the same. Like past legend spells, you are going to probably see like a joke here and there, like you might see a hammer shot or crushing hammer, I don't remember the name, fissure, or you know, upstart goblin. You might see like a little meme here or there, but now it's like it's always going to be the same type of spells. Not trying to like put it down. I'm very happy that Dark Hole is being less dependent. I'm very happy that Pot of Greed is more available, but you know, there's not much flavor in terms of what this is. But hopefully the 25 unknown did have a little bit of funny gimmicks here and there. But until then, that's all that I have to say about these. Yes, and finally, we're on to the meat and potato. Okay, I don't know why I use that terms of phrase. That's actually the first time I ever said that. The other part of the meta listing that I actually did really want to talk about, once again, a listing that's affected by the Elemental Hero Structure deck, believe it or not. The ban list means very little in this listing. The elemental hero structure deck means a lot in this. So, of course, out of all the Legend Trap cards, we only had 23 that were missing, so 2 less than the spell situation. Of course, the top representation is going to be 13 copies of Magic Cylinder. No surprise! Magic Cylinder negates an attack, and also you can redirect a big number to automatically win the game. This problem still exists, even with Mirage Dragon, even with more backer removal. But you know, Rio's Eye still at 3, Ship 7 Treasure still at 3. Might protect backer a little bit, but no, just nothing specifically in general. It's just Magic Cylinder is another way to easily get game or easily to just destroy your opponent's mentality. But you know, let's move on to that and go on to the main part of this I want to discuss is Quaking Mirror Force, the new Legend Draft card that came from the Elemental Hero Structure deck, which once again I've said many times in this video. If you do not know, by the way, Elemental Hero's got a structure deck. If you still don't know, how? Quaking Mirror Force is amazing. Is an amazing card, and it definitely got a buff from the original Master Rule counterpart. The original Master Rule counterpart stated, set all face-up attack position monsters your opponent controls to face-down defense position. They cannot change their battle positions. While this, though it doesn't lock battle positions, when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you set all face-up monsters they control to defense position. So if your opponent would go into battle phase with a, let's use Secret Investigator as an example, Rio's Eye defense position, Snake Princess Purity in attack position, Purity attacks, you activate this, Princess gets face down, and also Rio's Eye, who's in defense mode, goes down as it makes all face-up monsters your opponent controls go to face down position, defense position, which is actually really good against a lot of these decks with high defense monsters where you won't see them in attack mode too often. It's really nice. Though, you know, it's still a little bit experimental, so you might not see here or there, but, you know, having something to allow you to go into just the Cosmos the next turn, get past that Rio's Eye that's now set, is really nice. Up until, you know, they activate Sunset Rebirth, which makes them immune to destruction. Hopefully that won't be the case for you. After that, we do have a copy of Icarus Attack, Compulse Evacuation Device, and Mirror Force. Icarus Attack, of course, one of the main staples that you'll see for Harpy Lady. Compulse Evacuation Device, a balance for main phase interruption, which has been a fair bit more popular, though depending on the matchup, you might not want to see it, because once again, Rio's Eye exists. Ship of 7 Treasure Engine, or package, more or less, they just summon themselves again. So, you know, against certain decks, this is a really good card. Though, against that very niche situation, not fantastic. It's more or less kind of a skill-related thing. Mirror Force, destroy all monsters. Respect to that guy. Considering the fact of how much protection we have, I'm amazed you're not playing Quaking. But, you know, you do you. Yeah. Well, guys, I hope you all enjoyed that meta discussion. Yay! I went a little bit quicker in terms of Legend Spells and Traps this time around. That really is because there wasn't much to talk about, though the new listings of decks have been pretty interesting. I am very much excited to see how the new set, or the upcoming set, goes about it with the new Dark Matter support and the rest of the Neo support, along with a lot of other things, and I'm starting to think we may have a little zombie engine that may appear in the competitive scene. Well, we'll have to wait and see for once that's released, and of course I will be hopefully posting a video 2 to 3 weeks after it, depending on the situation of how the product releases, because, you know, just because the day of the release comes out doesn't mean that people are immediately going to get their hands on these cards, because, you know, they got to ship those things out. But anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope to see y'all next time.